Why the Green Party? That's a topic of consideration that I've been giving a lot of thought recently. Why the Green Party? Well, let's back up a little bit. The capitalist worldview is based on the assumption that economic systems have the ability to self-regulate. Or to put it another way, the more that we flawed human beings interact with a perfect system, the worse the outcomes, and conversely, the less we flawed human beings interact with a perfect system, the greater the outcomes. It's long been my personal assumption that this myth is founded in the story of the Garden of Eden. In the story of the Garden of Eden, everything was perfect until we flawed human beings began mucking around. And it was the flawed actions of us flawed human beings that ruined things. While most don't take this story as being literal truth, it is often taught at an early age. It creates a very strong prism through which we view our world. And I think it's important to note that cultural framing and to assess whether or not the assumptions made within it have any actual bearing on reality. And if this cultural framing causes us to make assumptions that are out of line with reality, we should learn to disband with these frames of understanding in the hopes of acquiring new scientifically sound frames of understanding that are derived from empirical data and observable reality, rather than cultural frames based on folk tales told around the campfires of our ancestors. Now, capitalists base their worldview on the assumption that capitalism is a homeostatic system with the ability to self-regulate. Their assumption is that the economy in a capitalist system has sufficient enough information sharing and feedback loops in which the economy can regulate itself like a thermostat. But there are different kinds of feedback. Negative feedback loops allow for homeostasis. They allow for a very primitive form of artificial intelligence. A great example of this is your household thermostat. On your thermostat, there's a desired setting, and then there's the actual state of the system. And a negative feedback loop seeks to decrease the distance between the actual state of reality and the desired state of reality. The variation from those desired settings acts as a prompt that causes the system to resolve the difference between the actual state of the system and bring it to the desired state, which means reacting against trends with opposing measures. When the room is too cold, the thermostat signals to the heater to start blowing hot air into the room, and it will continue doing this until the room reaches the desired state. When it reaches a homeostatic state, the thermostat signals for the heater to turn off. But homeostasis is not intrinsic to every system. This is because negative feedback loops are not intrinsic to every system. Tornadoes and hurricanes are examples from nature of positive feedback loops in which the conditions that create a system amplify that system. The board game of Monopoly is another great example of a positive feedback loop. In every game of Monopoly, things eventually tilt towards the favor of one individual player, who's able to amass more property and wealth than all of the other players. And in the moment that that happens, because they own more space on the board, they are statistically more likely to be owed money by the other players. This in turn forces the other players to sell off their properties in order to pay the debts owed to that winning player, which allows that winning player to then purchase those sold properties, develop them, which in turn makes it more statistically likely that those losing players will end up owing him money. This positive feedback loop doesn't have the ability to self-regulate, and in fact the opposite is true. A positive feedback loop, by definition, enhances its own extremity. If a thermostat used the same sort of positive feedback loop that a winning Monopoly player does, every increase in temperature would lead to a further increase in temperature, which would cause the room to become exponentially hotter and hotter until everything catches on fire. That's not homeostasis, nor is it sustainable. But this is how capitalism operates. And just like the thermostat burning through all the oil in the tank until the room catches on fire, capitalism is currently burning through our planet's resources through its engine of consumption, scarcity, and waste. In truth, capitalism tends toward monopoly. Monopoly meaning the economic term, not the board game. The reason that capitalism tends towards monopoly is because capitalism operates largely on a positive feedback loop. With financial success comes the ability to consolidate power. With the ability to consolidate power, one has the ability to also consolidate wealth and resources. And with the more wealth and resources one can consolidate, the more power one can consolidate. Capitalists claim that competition is a negative feedback loop that acts as a balancing check on capitalism's tendency towards monopoly. Now, they're not wrong in saying that competition creates a healthy marketplace. What they get wrong is that competition, or the ability to compete, is more and more difficult the more that competition is actually needed. The more success that you have as a business owner, the more that you can undermine, undercut, or buy out your competitors. When competition is most needed is when the consolidation of power and wealth is so great that it prevents competition. Private capital is able to create monopoly not because of government interference, however. It's able to create monopoly because monopoly is what's best for any one given business, despite it being bad for the economy overall. Private capital is able to do this without our consent because there's no democratic input, there's no negative feedback loop, no countervailing force to communicate the information that, hey, this isn't working out for the rest of us. This is because capitalism is the opposite of democracy. The only democracy in capitalism is your ability to vote with your wallet at the cash register. And those most negatively affected by capitalism, the poor, are those who are least able to participate in the market and thus least able to exercise their right to vote in the marketplace. There's no way for them to get the information to the rest of the system that, hey, this isn't working out for the rest of us. And this is where the case for government comes in. Government, ideally, is a cooperative union of individual citizens. A democratic system which can self-regulate and correct course by giving the vote to all people within it, through the democratic input of all of those governed, not just the richest. Giving all people the vote, including the poor, decentralizes power and allows for society as a system to have multiple inputs of information. Giving people a market that they cannot participate in does not allow for that sort of transfer of information. Capitalists argue that the problem with our government is that it interferes with private capital, that it interferes with the marketplace. I would say that the opposite is true. The problem with our government is not that it exists or that it interferes with the marketplace. The problem with our government is that private capital recognizes that giving everybody the vote decentralizes power. And since the vote in a democracy is a countervailing force against the forces of capitalism, capitalists have been working long and hard to take away meaningful choices at the ballot box. They've done this by buying out both the Democratic and Republican parties, by excluding voices of opposition from televised debates, broadcast on our public airwaves by Wall Street-owned corporations who have a vested interest in the outcome of the election. And the Democratic and Republican parties, whether they have wanted to do this or not, in an ever-escalating arms race of corporate money, have sold themselves to Wall Street. They have allowed themselves to be co-opted by private capital. And this is where the case for the Green Party comes in. The Green Party was founded in opposition to the trends that we're seeing come to fruition right now, the accelerated consolidation of wealth and power in the hands of a few. Since both the Democratic and Republican parties have allowed themselves to be co-opted by Wall Street, by private capital, our government, because of the people who are in it, finds itself in service of private capital rather than the needs of the public. It's for this exact reason that the Green Party does not take corporate or PAC money donations. The Green Party relies entirely on small donations from individual citizens like you. The Green Party cannot be bought by Wall Street because we're not for sale. I encourage you to go over to maingreens.org, check out our new website, and sign up to volunteer with the Green Party. Use the resources that we have available on our website to start up a local chapter. And since the best way of starting a local chapter of the Green Party is by running for office, be sure to go and sign up to let us know that you're interested in running. The Maine Green Independent Party will be putting on a series of candidate schools throughout the year of 2013 to give you all the resources you need to run a successful campaign for public office. And of course, your financial support also matters. Go over to maingreens.org where you can sign up to be a monthly sustainer and give just a few dollars a month, or go ahead and give a one-time donation of whatever you feel is right. You're watching The Punk Patriot, to life, liberty, in pursuit of a less fucked up government. If you like this video, please donate what you think it was worth. You can find the link down in the description of the video. Also, let me know what you think in the comments section. Please share this video with your friends and your enemies. The only way that this channel will expand is through word of mouth and people like you. So thank you very much.